How are you? All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Vic Reynolds from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I'm the director there. So thank you so much for coming out this morning. I'll be relatively brief, and it's my understanding we will open it up for questions. We have folks from the Secretary of State's office here as well as from GBI to entertain any questions. Some of you may not realize it's very unusual for the GBI to become involved in election issues. We do not have any jurisdiction in those matters. Statutorily, that lies with the Secretary of State's office. That's a function that's assigned to them. However, in this particular instance, the GBI was asked to assist, come in as an assisting agency to help the Secretary of State's office regarding a decision that the Secretary had made to conduct an audit of the absentee by mail ballot oath envelopes in Cobb County, Georgia. The Secretary made a decision to conduct that audit, made a decision to conduct it in that particular county, and then ask us as the GBI to come in to assist simply because of manpower issues, the sheer volume of folks that it would take to conduct that. We then, after agreeing to assist in that regard, we then met with the Secretary of State's folks and put together an audit team. That audit team consisted of law enforcement officers from both the Secretary of State's office and from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, some of our agents. The mission in that audit was to review absentee ballot oath envelopes that had been randomly selected out of the group of absentee ballot oath envelopes. We decided to audit 10% of those particular ballots because we figured at the end that 10% would give us a confidence level of about 99%, which is what we were aiming for in this particular endeavor. That equated out to be about 15,118 absentee ballot oath envelopes that were audited by this team. The audit was actually physically conducted on December 21 and 22 in Cobb County, Georgia. The results of that audit confirmed the accuracy of the initial determination of the Cobb County Election Department in all but 2 cases. In other words, out of the 15,118 absentee ballot oath envelopes that were randomly audited, all of those were appropriately counted with the exception of 2. 2 were allowed that should not have been. In those 2 cases, the audit team confirmed with the voters that they had actually cast the ballots in question, but there were some procedural issues, and let me explain what I mean by that. In the first instance, no signature was was located in the appropriate place on the envelope. When we found the voter, we literally went out and found the voter and interviewed that person. We discovered that they had signed the envelope but had signed the front of it. They'd signed it in the wrong place. In the second instance, we went out and found that voter as well, and we discovered that the reason the signatures did not match was because, in fact, the voter's spouse had signed the voter's signature. So those were the 2 ballots out of the 15,118 ballots audited that were counted that should not have been. They were actually eligible for what's called CURE, C-U-R-E, CURE notifications. In other words, the Cobb Elections Department should have notified those 2 individuals to come in with the opportunity to cure or straighten up those procedural deficiencies, but they did not do that. And so in the end, those 2 ballots were in fact counted, and they should not have been. The results of the audit conducted by both the Secretary of State and the GBI indicated that the Cobb Board of Elections had a 99.99% accuracy rate in the absentee ballot oath envelopes that we audited. So I would also note for the record as well that during the course of the audit, there were no fraudulent absentee ballots identified during the process. So that's basically the function of what the GBI did in this particular case. Again, it's not a commonplace thing to see the Bureau involved in election issues simply because statutorily that authority is given to the Secretary of State, and we have no jurisdiction in the matter. However, we were asked to come in as an assisting agency, which we gladly did in this case, to help the Secretary of State's office after they made the decision on what to do and where to do it. And so our agents sat down with them, worked with them, and accomplished this goal at the first of last week, December 21 and 22. That's a little bit about what our involvement was, what we accomplished, and what we found during the course of the audit. I'll step aside now and allow the Secretary of State folks to come up along with any of our agents if you need to ask any specific questions of them about procedures or things of that nature. Again, thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate you. Thank you. Y'all have any questions you want to pose to the Secretary of State's folks? Yes, ma'am. Francis, come up. Bang, why don't you step up here with me just in case we need you. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Right. We have obviously hundreds of investigations that are open at this time, the affidavits that have been forwarded to us. We are following up on all of the affidavits that have been provided, and all of the open investigations we are taking very seriously, and we are investigating those. Some of those we are also partnering with GBI on following up on. That is not under the investigations division's venue, so that I would not be able to answer that question.
Bang, will you help me with that? This is Special Agent Bane Ridge, who was our point person for the GBI during the course of the investigation.
If you make reference to the report, what we did was look at the oath envelope and then compare it with documents that are in the database of the Cobb County Elections Department and also in the Secretary of State's voter registration system. So it's looking at the totality of all the documents. You're comparing similarities in letter shapes, numbers, flourishes, in the slant of the signatures. And I thought it was very interesting that of the 15,118 envelopes that were reviewed by the audit team, that we only had 6 occasions where the two-member teams had an issue and had to have someone come in and actually make the call. So in our interviews with the Cobb County Elections Department in preparation to conduct this audit, they gave us some information that they use in comparing the signatures, but it was also, you'll know it when you see it. And that is exactly what we found to be true, is that our agents really had very little difficulty making the comparisons. As the report also states, there were approximately 396 that were forwarded, if you will, to our investigative teams that we had designated. And then they took it another step further, referencing more documents and ultimately following up with interviews with those identified voters. Well, I'll talk about the audit. The standard that we set when we began this audit was as any other GBI investigation. We knew that there could be criminal cases that may come out of this, potentially. So that was the standard that we went into it with seasoned agents and seasoned investigators with the Secretary of State's office. Regarding the faith in the system and the workings of the system, I'll defer to the Secretary of State's office for that. But again, as we always do in these cases, we followed our leads and we followed the evidence to where it ultimately took us. Well, I'm not going to speculate on statewide fraud. I'll reserve comments to the audit that the GBI assisted the Secretary of State's office with. It would be no. That we, as the report has found, there was only 2 instances where those those envelopes should have been cured in the process. No fraudulent ballots were found. I have no information about that. Yes, they were. Well, before this investigation, I did not know Miss Janine Evler. She is the elections director for Cobb County. I want to personally thank her for her help in us doing this audit. And I think the report speaks very highly of her and her office. She was a consummate professional, gave us total access to her staff and to her database, which helped us to accomplish this audit. Sure. For the details, I would say reference the report. Well, we had approximately 150,000 absentee by mail envelopes as reported by the Cobb County Elections Department. Statistically, to get to a 99% confidence level, it was approximately 10% of the population. We made the decision that all of their rejected ballots, either because of signature mismatch or no signature, would automatically be audited. The boxes that were sealed by the elections department had a unique number on them. So we just entered those numbers into a random number generator application, and it just spit out random numbers. So we decided to also extend that to take 30 boxes out of the total 105 or 104. And then even within those boxes, we randomly selected envelopes within the boxes themselves up to a certain number. So it was as random as we believe that we could do, giving the amount of data and the time constraint we were under. I'll leave that to the Secretary of State's office to answer that one.
Yeah, in this particular instance, the Secretary of State made a request to the governor indicating that he needed some assistance because of volume, and so based on that, we were given the green light to assist. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.